out with your new friend Ty.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's the podcast where you find new friends and new music. This week, I am joined by a Georgia native who first started recording his new album 25 years ago with the help of some legendary names in country music. He's here to tell us all about that album, what makes it special, and what else he has going on. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Tommy Townsend. Tommy, how the heck are you, friend?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. It's the first part of May. My birthday's at the end of the month. So this is always my month of the year. So I appreciate you jumping off with me.
Happy birthday at the end of the month.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about this album and who you worked with on it. And we'll tee off with Tommy next.
It's time to tee off with Ty and today's guest, Tommy Townsend. Here comes the first four.
Okay, here we go. Question number one of the first four, Tommy. If you couldn't be in the entertainment industry, what job would you have?
Oh, wow. No, boy, I don't know.
These ones will make you think.
It would make me think because I don't know how to do anything else. I think it would be cool to be like an airplane pilot. That's something like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah. But I enjoy flying and all that. And I remember when I was a little kid growing up, I was all into astronauts and all that stuff, So yeah, so that's probably what I want to be, airplane pilot or something.
That's a solid career choice. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this one? If I give you the control of the music at a party, what's that first song that you're going to play to get everybody up and moving and in the groove?
It would probably be a song by Waylon called Don't Y'all Think This Outlaw Bitch Done Got Out of Hand.
Love it. That is a great song choice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how about this? Question number 3. If you could bring a fictional character from movie, TV, books, wherever, to life and hang out with them for a day, who would it be?
Well, I tell you what, it probably wouldn't be anybody from in a book or anything. It would probably be my grandfather.
Oh, okay. What's the story there?
Well, reason being is my grandfather. He was a famous, pretty famous moonshiner in the area of North Georgia a long time ago, and so we now distill his 90-year-old recipes. It's called Granddaddy Mim's Distilling Company, and I never knew him. He passed away when I was like 1, and so I don't have any memories of him. But from the stories I've heard, he would have been kind of like a John Wayne type figure. Zell Miller, which was the former governor of Georgia, called him the John Wayne of the North Georgia Mountains. And so that would be who, if I could bring back someone to talk to, that would be who it would be.
Well, I feel like he's just got some incredible stories too.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah, and the people have told me stories and stuff, and he did a lot of good with the money that he made selling illegal liquor. So he backed politicians and helped people that didn't have money back then, and it's that type of thing.
That might be one of the better answers we've had to this question.
Yeah.
Good work. Okay, here we go. Last question of the first 4. If you could have an unlimited supply of anything, whiskey, tacos, guitar strings, scotch tape, whatever it is other than money, what would it be?
Man, I love French fries.
Ooh, okay. Okay, we're about to have a hot take here. What is your favorite fast food French fry?
Oh gosh,
putting you on the spot here, Tommy.
Yeah, you are. Let's see. I like the crinkle fries though.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of which one it is. Zaxby's has real good crinkle fries.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
And who else has? Man, I can't think right now. Yeah, that'd been a question I'd had to think of. I'd have to think about.
Well,
but yeah.
If you're ever back up in the Northwest, keep an eye out for Zips Drive-In. It's a little burger joint around the Spokane, Washington area, and they are hands down the best crinkle cut fries I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No joke. Yeah. And maybe it's not hometown favoritism, but I've been trying to find something as good as those since I moved away, and there's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. Yeah. Wow. But it's kind of funny. I like the Orada crinkly fries that you just put in oil in a pot at home and get them really crispy.
Ooh, they got to be crispy. Got to be.
Oh
crispy.
yeah, they got to be. They can't be floppy. Or
exactly.
Yeah.
Tommy, man, thank you so much. That was the first four. Thanks for playing along. But now I want to get to know you a little bit better before we get into to everything with the record and all of that. Give us a story of growing up in Georgia and tell us how you originally got into music.
Well, growing up in Georgia, and the Townsends, here or there, played music and stuff. And my dad was a guitar player and actually still plays guitar some. He's 83. And but anyway, just got started with that. And then, some of my friends when I was in school, we had like a little local band and would play birthday parties and family reunions and VFWs and stuff like that. And then in the late 80s, I'd met Waylon Jennings in the early 80s. In the late 80s, him and Jerry Bridges, his bass guitar player, and the guy and Jerry was producing like America and Drinking and Dreaming and all that, produced those things with Waylon. And they took me in the studio and started recording stuff. And I always tell people, I think I started at the top and worked my way down. But yeah, that's how all that kind of came about.
So you mentioned having a band as you were growing up. Did you play an instrument in that band? Because I know that you didn't start playing guitar, right? You started on the drums.
No, I didn't. I actually started playing drums. We were in like middle school, and so me and a couple of my friends got together, and we were going to actually back this girl up at a middle school talent show, and so we had rehearsed with this girl, and she right at the before the talent show, she just chickened out, backed out or something. So we had rehearsed stuff, and so we thought, okay, well, we'll go ahead and do it. And so nobody wanted to sing, and it's like for some reason, and I was always like a really shy kid and stuff, and I was like, well, I'll sing. And I learned the Waylon's "I'm a Rambling Man," and I sang and played drums, and we did the talent show. We didn't win, but yeah, that's kind of how that started, and playing drums. And then after that, I played drums in a couple more bands, and then when I was a teenager, I started playing guitar.
So what was the push to learn guitar? Was it just to kind of expand your repertoire a little bit, or was it kind of out of a necessity if you want to sing?
Well, it was both, really. I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and then I thought, okay, if I'm gonna, I'd gotten in really singing a lot, and I was the drummer and I was the main singer in the band. I thought, okay, if I'm gonna sing, I need to learn how to play guitar. So my dad, he taught me a few chords on it, and then I just kind of took it from there. And I learned on my dad's 1947 J45 Gibson that he still has, and the strings were big, and I was a little kid, and I wanted a Fender guitar, a Telecaster or a Stratocaster or whatever. And my dad said, well, you learn to play this one, and me and your mom will get you a guitar if you show interest in it. So I did, and they got me a Fender Telecaster and a Fender Twin amplifier for Christmas one year.
Oh, that's solid. That's one way to get everything moving for you, for sure. Yeah.
And I would after school, or after I was always into football too when I was a little kid, and even older. But after school or after football practice, I'd come home and I would sit there and play guitar and just play and play and play and figure it all out myself. And because back then there was no YouTube or anything to go watch.
Just had to figure it out.
Just had to figure it out. Yeah. So I'd sit and play records or tapes or whatever, just rewind them and all that, and try to figure out what whoever I was listening to, what they were doing. And but it's funny, when I moved to Nashville, I kind of got out of the electric guitar playing and got into more acoustic playing just because it was easier to sing and play acoustic than it was to play lead and sing.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, Nashville is just so many good players. It's like, well, what am I doing playing lead guitar? I need to just be playing acoustic guitar, But I've got back into playing lead guitar. Since about 2008, I started back in it when I started fronting the Waylon band, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and you talked about it a little bit, and I want to talk about kind of everything that you've done with Waylon Jennings, because I think that's a super fascinating story. But start by telling us the first time that you ended up in a room with him. It just kind of happened, right? You were like 12.
Yeah, I was about 13, I think. And so there's this place down in Georgia called Lanierland Music Park, and it was in Cumming, Georgia, where it was like a kind of a big old metal building. It would seat like 4,000 or 5,000 people. And so my mom and dad and myself, and we went to see Waylon there. And at that time, that was like in 83, I guess. And so Waylon security was Hell's Angels, a couple of Hell's Angels guys. And my dad, mom, my daddy could just strike up a conversation with anybody. And he got talking to one of them. And so he said, well, bring Tommy down here at the gate after the show. So Waylon loves kids, and I'll take him back there to meet him. And so he did. And I went on the bus, and I stayed on there, I don't know, probably 30 minutes or something like that. And Waylon was sitting there, and we just talked, and he asked me questions, and he was just so nice to me. Because at that time, Waylon kind of had the reputation of being, sort of rowdy and wild. And, I saw none of that night. It was just like, just two people sitting there talking. And so that's kind of how all that happened. And I remember I'd given him a tape that I had done. A friend of mine recorded me and my little band, and it was songs on it. Some of them were Waylon songs or whatever. Now I gave him a tape that night too. And then later on, met, I guess it was later on that year, I met Jerry Bridges, which was Waylon's bass player and, producing records with Waylon at that time. And met him at Willie Nelson's 4th of July picnic in Atlanta Motor Speedway. One year, Willie had his picnic. And that's where I got to meet Jerry. And then after that, it's just like every time they were around Atlanta, Chattanooga or something, we'd always just go see them and got to be friends with Waylon. My whole family did, and the band and the crew and all that. And that's kind of how that evolved.
Well, what do you think it was that, you as a 12, 13-year-old could walk in and just talk to a guy like Waylon Jennings, especially a guy that kind of has this reputation around him? He's got Hell's Angels, security guards. And you just, as a teenager, walked in there and just started chatting him up. Is that more credit to the kind of guy he is, or how you were as a 13-year-old?
Well, I think it's the kind of gives credit to what kind of guy he was, and what a dumb kid I was. Not knowing any better or whatever. Because when you're that young, you don't know any better with a lot of stuff. And so it was just. And the thing that attracted me to Waylon and Willie and Hank Jr. and all that is I've always had this thing for outlaws. I don't know what it is, and my grandfather, being he wasn't a musician, but he was a bootlegger. And I've always just had this thing for that, the underdog or whatever you want to call it, And so, I guess that's one thing that attracted me to Waylon. Probably plus his music and his guitar playing always attracted me. He had that phase shifter going and all that. And I guess it's a combination of a bunch of stuff. But I guess I was just a dumb little kid, thinking all about that. And like I said, Waylon was a stand-up guy.
Well, like at that age, did you understand the I guess the gravity of that situation? How big of a star Waylon was and that sort of thing when you went to talk to him? Or was it just like, hey, I'm just going to go chat with this guy?
Yeah, it was kind of that. And, I didn't course, I knew he was a big star, and at that time, I mean, he was still on top of his game, recording and stuff. And I guess I didn't at that time. No, I didn't think about that. And actually, it didn't really hit me until I was older. And my daughter and Miley Cyrus grew up together and done cheerleading and stuff. And we were at and my wife and I, we'd Billy Ray and Tish were, we'd made friends with them, not through music, is actually through cheerleading with my daughter Megan and Miley. And I went on to do a few things with Billy Ray or whatever, but we were at a school dance one night, and Billy Ray and I were sitting there on the bleachers just talking, and Billy Ray was a big Waylon fan, and he was like, "Man, that must have been so cool to get to do what you did with Waylon." And I guess it wasn't until just at that when he and I were talking about it, it's like, man, that was pretty cool, to get to do that. And because I mean, I was younger, and I don't know. I guess I thought everybody knew a star or something. I don't know.
It's one of those things that, like, you're living in that moment, so it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like I've done some pretty cool things, and everybody, when you talk to them, they're like, "Oh, that was super cool." And I was like, "Well, I was just hanging out. Like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal." And then you look back at it, you're like, "Oh no, it definitely was a big deal."
Yeah. And when I was a senior in high school, Jerry took me in to begin with. Jerry Bridges took me in the studio, and we cut some sides and stuff. And Waylon would like come by the studio and just hang out, and I know I remember he had like a little like a poker machine in the lobby of the studio, and he would sit in there and push the buttons and play the 5-card draw, on the poker machine he had, and he was even in there at that time putting his input in, about, "Hey, Jagger, turn that guitar up or something down," or whatever, just and then about a year or two later is when he and Jerry, I remember Jerry called me and said, "Waylon wants to go in the studio with me, with you, and let's cut some stuff." And that's where it all started. It was actually in like 87. When, Southern Man was the first song we cut, and that was actually cut in 87.
What is so when you say that song was cut in 87, is the song that you actually put out on this album those same master tracks from 87?
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, we went back in and beefed it up a little bit. Nothing, I mean, we didn't change anything. We just didn't have, I went in and re-sang the whole album. But the tracks are the same thing. And then, when I signed with BFD Audium, Chuck Rhodes, I mean, they went back in and had it remastered and beefed up, and but everything is basically original, and there were some things added, but it was added in with the original stuff to just make it pop a little more.
So how did you get started with Jerry Bridges wanting to record you? I mean, was it that the demo that you brought the second time you saw them, or was it something outside of that?
I know. I guess it was the demo the second time I saw them, and I remember Jerry telling me, he's like, when you get old enough, it'd be fun to take you in the studio and do stuff, because I mean, Lord, at that time I was not ready to do that, but and he did, and we just kept up with him, and because back then they were just touring a lot, and there was always around Knoxville or Chattanooga or Atlanta or somewhere, and we just always go see them and exchange numbers. And I remember Jerry and his family one time when they played at Nearland Music Park, a couple of years later from when I met him, him and his wife and family came down and spent the weekend with us, and just got to be friends with him. And, and then I was around Waylon all the time, and that's kind of how all that evolved.
Well, so, I mean, this whole album came out of this work session in the 80s, and then another one later on, right? There was kind of two parts to this. So,
there's two parts. Mm-hmm.
So walk us through that. What was the kind of what caused the separation between the two recording sessions?
It was just time. Time. One thing, because when I went in, like I say, I was like, I was young, and then, and I always kept up with Waylon, and then we moved to Nashville in 1995, and my wife and my two little girls, and Waylon was actually, he and his management company were working with me, managing me, and all of that stuff, and then. A year later, we went back in the studio and cut some more of the stuff. The later stuff. Have you listened to the whole album? Have you been through the whole album?
Yep.
Okay.
Multiple times.
The later stuff was Trouble with the Capital T, Stomping Ground, and darn, you got me having to think about it now. There's another one on there, but I know Southern Man and the Picker and Couldn't Still Do, and Can't Stand the Heat. That was all recorded on the first sessions.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a great album to just listen through. And we're talking about your new album, Southern Man, came out April 29th. It's available everywhere. But as you listen through this album, you're almost transported back to the late 80s, early 90s, when that outlaw honky tonk country was really prevalent. And I love this album for that, because it doesn't sound like something that's trying to be that. It really is actually that. And part of that is because it was mostly recorded during that time. But when you look at this album now that it's out, it's 2022, what kind of reaction are you getting from folks that listen to this album and haven't heard anything from you before?
It's so funny. Everybody's like, man, that's real country music.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first reaction I get. And, and when I tell them what it was and who produced it and who played on it, and they're like, oh, wow, that even intrigues people more about that. And it's like, one of the cuts, they recruited Marty Stewart to come in and play mandolin on it. And, that's the one Couldn't Still Do. He played, there's some mandolin parts on there that he played. And, but yeah, people are like, well, I did a radio thing today in Knoxville, and it's actually it's called the Blue Plate Special, and it was in front of a live audience that we did it, and people were I had it was like 40 or 50 people in a room small room they have, and half of them came up to me and was like, man, that's real country music you're playing. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. Yeah. And so that's the biggest reaction I've gotten. And I always call it my new old album. That's why I've been calling it and doing interviews and stuff. And I think the record still today stands up. I really, and I'm not saying that because it was me on it, but I think if I heard that record with someone else singing it, I would think, man, that sounds like anything today. I really,
absolutely. It definitely does. And I love how you start the album. It's got an introduction from Waylon Jennings himself. What's the story behind that? Where did that come from?
Well, I would go out with them every once in a while and sing with them. And Waylon would let me do Good Hearted Woman, Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, or he would walk off stage and I would sing Southern Man or something. And so when after I'd signed the record deal, I was laying in bed one night, and so they were, at that time they were mastering it, and it popped in my head. It's like, okay, so Waylon and the crew, they always taped every show every night, a board tape, set at that time. And so I had 5 or 6 of those tapes, and I'm laying in bed, and I thought, it just kind of come to me. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got these tapes, at my parents' house, and what a great way to start the album. And so before I told anybody, I went to their house, and I knew exactly where the tapes were, and I thought these things are probably oxidized. You know, they were just in a dresser drawer, you know, with a bunch of other cassette tapes and stuff. And so I'm thinking, I bet this tape is oxidized. Well, I put it in a cassette player that was at my parents' house, and the cassette player would not forward wind or rewind, but it would play. And so I just had to sit there and listen till it came around. And it's so funny, I kind of walked away from the cassette player, and it came on, so I ran back in the dining room where it is, and stopped it, and I took a pencil and stuck it in the hole and rewound it for just a bit. And I called Chuck Rhodes, the general manager of BFD Audium, and I called him on a Saturday after I did that. I told him what I got. He goes, "Have that on my desk Monday morning." So I took it to him and put it on there and put it on his desk, and he wasn't there. And so he called me back a couple of days later, and he goes, "Man, it transferred and to digital." And
wow.
So I thought that was just so cool. You know, it's like an 11-second introduction or something on there that starts off the album.
And it really does, just knowing the backstory of the album and how it came about. I mean, it really does kind of set the tone for what this album is. And then you follow it up with the title track, Southern Man, right after that. And it just gets you right into that groove. But it's had 25 years to kind of to sit and I guess get better like wine, if nothing else. It's an album like fine wine, but kind of give everybody the explanation of why it took 25 years to put this record out, because I think there's some interesting tidbits there.
Well, at that time, of course, it didn't find a home at that time, place and time in country music. But at that place and time in country music, labels weren't signing anybody that was young at that time, I think. And I was like, I don't know, 19, 20 years old, but 18, and then Waylon passed away, and then it was just kind of forgotten about, and I've always thought it was a great record, and I just it was just in a box. And then when BFD Audium we were talking with them, Craig Campbell, which is a great friend of mine and does all of our publicity and co-management. He was the one that talked to Chuck Rhodes about it. And Chuck was like, "Tommy's got what?" And so he wanted to hear it, and Chuck did. And so I gave it to him, and then Chuck and them flipped out over it and sent it to the New York office, and they flipped out over it. And Chuck, got back with Craig or something, and he goes, could we release this album? Like, it's, because I had signed a deal with them not to release that album. It was to do a new album, and so that's kind of how that started. He said, Chuck said, "I think it's one of the best country records I've heard in 10 years. And he said, too, it's just the story behind it,
absolutely.
The only person that I think that Waylon ever produced besides himself was, he and Richie Albright cut one of Hank Jr.'s records, New South, I think. And when was that? That was back was that maybe early 80s or maybe 70s even? I can't remember when that record was out. But yeah, that I was the only artist I think that he'd ever produced.
So those are some big shoes to step into, and really that's got to help you just in general be kind of more comfortable with with the whole process in general. But we've got the title track here. It's called Southern Man off of the Southern Man album, and it does feature Waylon Jennings himself, which is, this is most definitely the most recent recording, or I guess most recent release of a song with Waylon on it. But give us a story behind how this song came about and what that recording process was like before we let everybody listen to it.
Well, it was like I say, that was the first song that actually I cut that not the track that you hear, but I cut a track on it when Jerry was producing me, just him. And so we cut it. And then when Waylon got involved, a couple years later, we recut it. And when it's a song written by Fred Noblock, J. Fred Noblock. He's one of the, big writers at that time in town. And all these songs that we did, Southern Man, and all of them were the songs that had been pitched to Waylon that he had kind of set aside, but he wanted me to cut these songs. And so Southern Man was the first one that we did. And then Waylon came in and he sang background harmony on it. And there's the one line, which gets kind of high, in range. And Waylon had, Waylon kind of had that baritone, but Waylon could sing like bluegrass harmony, like a high harmony. And I remember he went in there, and the line is, "I talk slow so y'all understand," is a kind of one of the lines in the song. And I can remember him in there and watching him out in the studio doing that harmony, and he was like getting on his tiptoes and throwing his hands in the air and trying to reach the notes, and he's in there just cussing and fussing, and the band, this is high, and he played guitar on it and all that stuff. And so, yeah, that's what you hear today.
Well, here, let's give everybody a chance to take a listen, see if they can pick out that Waylon Jennings harmony. This one's called Southern Man, the title track off of his new album by Tommy Townsend.
I learned respect at the end of a willow switch. I learned how to work, I learned how to sweat with a shovel in a ditch. Learned about love in the backseat of a Chevy with a girl named Mary Ann. I learned how to roar till the break of dawn, playing in a honky-tonk band. Don't you wonder who I am? I'm the pride of Dixieland, and I talk slow so y'all understand. I'm a Southern man. I'm your Southern man. I learned how to sip that moonshine whiskey in the hills of Tennessee. I learned how to deal from a Mississippi gambler on a boat down to New Orleans. I learned how to fight for my rights in Alabama and how to run from a jealous man. I'm your lifetime friend and your good time buddy when you shake my hand. Don't you wonder who I am? I'm the pride of Dixieland, and I talk slow so y'all understand. I'm a Southern man. I'm your Southern man. Southern man, Southern man, I'm the pride of Dixieland, and I talk slow so y'all understand. I'm a Southern man. I'm your Southern man.
was the title track off of his newly released album, Southern Man by Tommy Townsend. And Tommy, on top of all of the country music stuff that you've been doing, being in the entertainment business, you mentioned it a little bit right off the top. You stepped into the distilling business. Sounds like it's a family business. Granddaddy Mims. Give us kind of the story of how that got started and where you guys are at with it now.
Well, Granddaddy Mims was an idea. Well, like I say, my grandfather's name was Jack McClure, and all the grandkids called him Mimmy. And it kind of got shortened to Mim. And I'm like the next to the youngest grandkid, so I don't really remember him. But the idea came about to start distilling his recipes was back in 2011, I guess. A friend of mine from Anaheim, California, Jack Keeter, he's a financial guru and stuff. And so he had his aunt, his great aunt had passed away, and she lived outside of Lubbock, Texas. And he had called me. He said, "Would you?" Said Aunt, I think Mildred was her name. So Aunt Mildred, she's 90-something years old. Said she loved country music and never got to go to Nashville. And he said, "Could I pay you to come out here and sing Amazing Grace at her funeral?" And I said, "I would be happy to come sing at your aunt's funeral." I said, I ain't charging you a dime to come do it, because I said, you and I are friends. And so I said, just pay my flight. And so he came in, we came in about the same time at the Lubbock airport. And he was showing me around where he kind of grew up. He and his family had moved to California when he was younger. And he got talking about moonshiners and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, my grandfather was a pretty famous moonshiner back, in the day. And he asked me if I could get my hands on the recipe. And I'm like, I don't know why. And it just, one thing led to another. I did. And we started the company in like 2012. And then we started distilling liquor in my hometown of Blairsville, Georgia in 2016. And it's grown. It was a hobby to begin with. I thought that'd be cool to make a few extra dollars. And now we're distributed in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, and parts of Arizona. And we got 13 employees. And we went from about doing 20, 30, 40 cases a month. And now we're bottling like 2,000, 2,500 cases a month.
Whew.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible though.
It is.
Really
yeah.
is.
And that's something I just sort of fell into. It was not ever in something that intended to be. So, that's where that all started. And, of course, music and moonshine and whiskey go hand in hand.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
well, Tommy, where can people keep up with what you've got going on? What's your website and what are your social media handles?
Well, it's everything I've got is Tommy Townsend Music, TommyTownsendMusic.com. Instagram is Tommy Townsend Music, Facebook, all that stuff. And then, you can stream on all streaming services, Spotify, Pandora, all of that. iTunes, Apple Music. You can get the CD, the physical CD on Amazon.com. And then in late August, we're going to be coming out with vinyl.
Oh, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. And the reason that we didn't release vinyl with all of the other stuff is, the supply chain with everything is so backed up. So it was going to be August before we could get vinyl ready. So the label, Chuck Rhodes, told me, he goes, well, let's just go ahead and release this digitally and CDs. And he said, let's do a whole second release with vinyl in late summer. So it'll be, kind of just keep it going and with the vinyl.
I'm a big fan of that. I will be first in line on the website there to get my copy of it, because
I'm excited about that.
It's a fantastic album, and I think putting it on vinyl is only going to add to that. But Tommy, it's been an absolute blast. We're definitely going to have to catch up and do this again in the future. But we end every podcast the same way. It's called the Final Four, and it's kind of similar to the start. It's 4 questions that are going to make you think. You up for it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's time for the Final Four.
Okay, question number 1. What's your favorite venue that you've ever played in?
Oh, boy. That's a good one.
They're tough.
They are tough. We played a show, a country music festival in Switzerland one time a few years ago with Waymore's Outlaws. So that's one of my favorite venues. I think we played because it was right at the base of the Swiss Alps, and it was just beautiful scenery. My bucket list though is to play Red Rocks.
Okay.
I haven't played Red Rocks yet.
that is a solid bucket list venue. It's on my list to go see somebody there. So So maybe we'll make that. Yeah, maybe we'll make that make that hook up. Okay.
Yeah.
Question number 2, Tommy. Who are your 3 most recently played artists on your Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to music?
Let's see. Rodney Crowell.
Okay.
Sturgill Simpson.
Ooh, okay.
And Casey Musgraves.
You know what? I would say that's probably 3 artists that I could have guessed that you were listening to.
Yeah. And I like them for different reasons. I think Casey Musgraves to me is a new art, of course, new artist. Well, sort of new, but she just has a lot of soul, and her voice is really pure.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 3. When you're out on the road, what's the one place that you have to stop every time you see it? Gas station, restaurant, store, whatever it is.
Oh, probably Cracker Barrel.
Okay, good pick. I don't blame you for that one at all.
I've got all the bands has the menu memorized. I don't have to look at one anymore.
That's always the best. You roll in, you know exactly what you want.
Exactly.
Okay, here we go. Last question for you, Tommy. And take as much or as little time as you want to answer this one. But if you could pick one thing for people to take away from your appearance on this show or from your music in general, what would it be?
Well, Tommy was just a good old boy, and the album is country as it can be. I hope people will download it and listen to it. And I appreciate that.
Well, Tommy, thank you again so much for jumping on here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And guys, that was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's a country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Tommy Townsend and Southern Man featuring Waylon Jennings.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast. This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quandt. Announcer voiceovers by Jay Gwinn. And as always, hosted by Pisani.